G'day, I'm Frank, and you're listening to the Head Smack podcast.
You are listening to conversations with misfits, mavericks, and trailblazers.
Hey, welcome to the Head Smack podcast. My name is Paul Pavolny, and I am excited to have another misfit with me. I have G'day Frank with me, and it's good to have him on. Frank is an Aussie branding guy from Sydney, Australia, with a penchant for pink. His branding business is G'day Frank and works with clients around the world to develop their brand strategy, identity, and brand experiences for clients in real estate, tech, and FMCG related industry. G'day, Frank.
G'day, Paul. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. The welcome is built into the name, and so that makes it a lot easier.
That salutation helps, yes.
So I appreciate you being on, man. I know it's a little early for you on the other side of the planet, and so I appreciate you being on this early. Are you a morning person?
Nah, I wouldn't say so. I have to be because I've got two little kids, but probably more that little night owl at the moment, probably to my detriment as well, having two kids that wake up at like 6 a.m. So,
man. Yeah, I had an Aussie on here and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm up at 4 a.m. I'm like, 4 o'clock only comes.
No, that's definitely...
4 o'clock comes once a day for me. That's...
Yeah, no, I've been waking up for a couple of meetings with some Americans at 6:30, and even that is pushing it for me.
Yeah. 4 o'clock, man. It's either bedtime or dead time. Like I just... It's not a thing for me. So, G'day, Frank. So do you have to teach Americans how to say G'day the proper way? Do they try and say it and they just mess it up?
They're pretty good with it. It's usually those from the Asian continent, and in areas they usually say G-Day, and it's like, well, we'll get
That's
there.
a totally different thing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or like it's funny, like you can tell someone's a bot when they send you an email and it starts with hi G-Day or hi good day, and it's like, no, that's not my first name. Like,
oh, that's funny. Yeah, I tell people that if you want to make it sound right, you probably got to do it in either a Hispanic or Italian accent and say the word "grey," and it gets it pretty close to the Australian way of saying it. We don't say "good day," which most people try and say it. Yeah, man, I appreciate you being on.
Thank you. Yeah, just to finish on that little point, the best one is people say "have a good day," and it's like, no. Again, that's not how we use it. And I know you're originally from Australia, so you get it, but it's just, it's fun.
Yeah, you got to say "good day." You got to forget the D. Yeah, that's why I say the word "grey," but in an Italian accent or a Hispanic accent, and you'll get it right. Great. Well, man, I'm excited to have you on, man. And we have got quite the colors going here. I've got the blue purple. You have got the pink. And so totally opposite. So what's the story behind the pink?
The funny thing is I used to have that kind of blue in my colors in terms of my business colors. So yeah, the pink, and it's funny, since starting to use pink, I found some other guys, especially in branding, that do use pink. I know you had Jacob Cass on the show, and he's like not the polar opposite. He's like, he's a, what do you call it? A synonym for my brand in a sense. Like he's so similar in terms of his path, but slightly different, obviously. But pink it just picked out of nowhere, other than to say pink for girls, blue for boys. So I had this like navy kind of blue and this pink, and then it just got to the point where they were clashing, and I said, look, well, I'm just going to just hero one, make branding simpler, try and walk the walk, and pink standing it out as the hero color in it, and especially the stereotypical thing for a guy is not using pink. So many people are against pink, and I feel like I've leaned into it a bit like a bowerbird, but for pink rather than blue. So yeah, that's kind of where it's come from.
So tell me a little bit about your origin story. Usually I like to start off just learning a little bit more about you, kind of where you got started, and you can go as far back as you want to go. But tell me a little bit about Frank. And that's your middle name. That's not even your first name, but
so that's probably the first start I think I could start with. My actual name is Reagan. I use Frank because Reagan is a bit hard to spell, remember, pronounce. I get a lot of Regans and weird spelling, so I thought, let's just make it easier, just like a brand should be, and go with my middle name. Both my grandfathers were named Frank from my father and mother's side, so I thought it was nice, fitting kind of tribute to them. They're no longer with me, and that's how the business started. Is that. But yeah, origin story wise, I am no superhero. I don't attest to be. My origin as a designer, let's say, started, I could go all the way back to being a kid, like many kids in the 90s, drawing Ninja Turtles. And my grandparents thinking I was a prodigy because I knew the names Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, and Michelangelo. And my mum's like, "No, mum, they're just turtles. He's no genius. He's no genius.
He's no Renaissance
He's
man.
no Renaissance master." And so that was the kind of it. And then going through school, maths, sciences, English never really tickled my fancy. Like most designers, art is typically the thing that a lot of creative minded sort of kids gravitate towards. And it probably wasn't until maybe year 8 or 9, so 8th or 9th grade, that I was introduced to Photoshop. And this was probably Photoshop version 6 maybe, back in 2003. And yeah, the art teacher introduced our class to it, and I was like, this is so much better than Microsoft Paint, because we're all just like dicking with it in like computer science classes or whatever. And yeah, I took to it like a duck to water, just trying to learn it and learn it and learn it. Fast forward like 20 years later, I still don't know the ins and outs of Photoshop like some guy like
I don't think
Piximperfect.
anybody does.
No, exactly. Yeah, I'm definitely no Piximperfect on YouTube. But yeah, it was just this fascination with design and graphics, and I also gravitated towards advertising and magazines and things like that. So I was like photoshopping magazine covers and stuff like that, just in spare time for just shits and giggles, and maybe for some school projects. And my dad was like, getting towards the end of school, he was like, "Mate, what are you going to do after this? You're like, obviously we want you to go to university. You've got all the opportunity available to you." And I was like, "Well, I'd like to do like design, like graphic design kind of thing." He's like, "Oh, okay, really?" And I was like looking at all these kind of TAFE colleges, which is in university. It's like another version, which is a little bit cheaper. And my dad was like, "Look, if you go to a job interview and you get 2 people that are doing the exact same thing, and you're one of them, and you have a university degree and they have a TAFE degree, you might get a hiring person that says, well, they've committed to 4 years doing university, so that might be the person. So if you're comparing apples with apples and there's just that one little thing that might stand out, a university degree might help you." So I was kind of encouraged, go do a uni degree. Did that for 4 years, did Bachelor of Design, Visual Communication, topped my year, graduated with a Dean's Award and whatever it was.
Right.
And that got me a job into TV production. Like,
wow. Okay,
but it wasn't as a producer of TV. It was I was still a designer, working in our development department of coming up with new TV shows and pitching them to TV networks here in Australia and even overseas into different markets. So that was fun, like 7 years, and met a whole range of different people and met my wife there. We got married, had a kid, and then I said, well, I want to start my own business. So back in 2018.
Just going back a little bit before you talk about your own business. So when did you learn about the existence of graphic design? Because, as a creative kid, being artsy and doodling Ninja Turtles, that's one thing, that's art, right? And design is strategic art. So when did you learn about the difference, and like what captured your attention towards that?
Yeah, probably like I mentioned before, of the magazines and advertising. Like, I'm a total sucker for advertising. Like, it works on me like too well. Like even just a Facebook ad. Oh yeah, like a Facebook ad, it'll just like, oh yeah, I want that. But probably that kind of thing, and understanding layouts and imagery and type and everything kind of coming together. I found that much more interesting than drawing, because my drawing and painting just totally sucked by the time I was in high school. Like I never got past that Ninja Turtle drawing as a 5-year-old kid. And so that kind of tickled my fancy, I guess. And again, with advertising, photo shoots and things like that just were really cool to look at in my mind. I still like watching advertising, like good ads, and spot the crap ones, but that was kind of where I wanted to maybe go with it. At some point, like my thought in my mind, if I was to become a graphic designer and knowing what that was, I probably didn't know exactly the term. Maybe I might have been taught it in high school. I just don't remember the exact inception moment of when graphic design really became
Right,
apparent.
right. Yeah.
But the kind of laneway where you go was probably work in like an ad agency or something. Like if I wanted to do these things, I'd probably need to work at an ad agency. And like that
Yeah.
was the port of call after finishing uni, was like sending out a resume and some kind of portfolio work to all these ad agencies. And I nearly got accepted into ad school here in Australia, which is like, teaching people how to do copywriting and all that kind of stuff for ads, and missed out by one person was slightly better than me. So it was like the bees did the way. I could have been working in it still today, and could be a whole different story. But yeah, that's probably the reason that got me into it. And having that eye for layout and typography and things like that, I think probably, was the starting point.
Yeah. And so then you launched out on your own. You're heading into that story. So what made you decide to launch out on your own?
I think I got to the point where we'd had our first kid, and I'd seen my dad work for himself for many, many years, like for nearly his whole life. Or my whole life, I'd seen him work for himself as a contractor, but he was in a completely different industry. He worked in the music industry, was a tour promoter, worked for tour promoters, and then before that was a band kind of tour manager for the band Genesis and Phil Collins, like really
Wow.
big kind of acts.
Yeah.
And would work with, in Australia, if it was the Rolling Stones or Elton John, or kind of pick a name, and probably if they came to Australia, he worked with them. And seeing him kind of work from home and, go away on tour, obviously, but still working from home, having that diligence of a family life and things like that, I'm like, that's the kind of blueprint. And
Yeah.
I was starting to find people, on Instagram, like looking around, that had kind of, I guess, a freelance business or like a solo kind of business where they, work from home or wherever, and was able to do this with people from around the world. And now that
Yeah.
Zoom and Skype was like available to do video calls and things, I was like, this could be the time. And I've always wanted to do my own thing. I didn't want to work for somebody, I think, for the rest of my life, kind of thing. And I thought maybe this is the opportunity, and started like buying books and watching people on YouTube and all this kind of stuff to kind of get myself up to snuff with business. Rather than just design. Because I knew I had the design shops. It was just kind of, okay, well, how do I charge for things? How do I run this business? How do I support my family? So that was kind of the idea, 2017, and then quit 2018.
Wow. And so you launched the business, and, straight from the get-go, you were like thriving and doing amazing and just bringing in clients, right?
Yeah, luckily, very luckily. It's not the story that everybody has, obviously, that goes out and does this, and they might do it a different way, where they have a little bit of moonlighting, where they do it on the side while still working a full-time job. I kind of went cold turkey and just went, all right, I'm quitting.
Yeah.
But I did it with a safety net and kept my employer as a client. So I said, look, I want to go and do my own thing. If you'd still like me to do this stuff for you, I'll do it for this rate. And I'll commit to doing as much as I have been in here, but I want to be able to do work for other people. It doesn't need to be in this industry. I'm sure you'd probably not want me to work with your competitors, and I'm fine with that. But I want to do this. Would you be interested in seeing how this goes for, let's say, 12 months, and we'll sign a contract and I'll say goodbye, and in a weird kind of way. So it's like goodbye, but not forever. And that gave a very good platform to work from. And then it was just a matter of hitting up people I knew and just slowly getting the name out there, and it worked. Yeah, luckily.
Yeah. Well, now you talk a lot about branding. So when did the transition for you happen from, because we said you got interested by SEO advertising. When did the interest in branding come about for you?
Yeah. So look, in my role in the TV production space, it was pretty much branding. It was coming up with an identity for a new show. So, my producers would come up with the name and the whole kind of plot behind it. And it was a lot of the time it was for reality shows and, unscripted TV. And it was coming up with like a pitch deck, but not just like a PowerPoint. It was like a beautiful brochure they could go in and really sell it with tits and feathers and everything. And I punched out, I reckon, about 500 of them over 7 years. Like, it was a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was duplicate stuff. Same ideas pitched over and over. I can't tell you how many times we tried to pitch a certain show. But it was a lot of documents that were made, and even other bits and pieces that we did along the way, even working with shows that were on air and doing livery across the side of an A320 aircraft up in Asia for Asia's Got Talent, or the Asian version of The Apprentice. So it was some cool stuff that we did, and working with celebrities and all the rest of it. But so that was that was kind of design. So it was doing logos, it was doing typography, it was doing colors and kind of tone and feel and all the rest of it. So the visual aspect especially. And then I thought, well, like, I could do this for maybe other businesses. Like, every business needs a logo, every business needs colors and type and all the rest of it. And started learning more about branding just in my own time through the role that I was still working in. And then I was like, well, I could definitely do brand identities. Like, this could be a thing, this, like, visual identities. And then started to learn about messaging, and then this word strategy started creeping up in that kind of research. But it wasn't until I started doing the business that strategy became a part of the fold. So that's where kind of the branding idea came from. And the whole business, G'day Frank, wasn't to be a graphic designer, it was to be a branding services business.
What was, once you started launching into your own business, and then you mentioned, launching into talking about strategy, what was the first lesson that you learned about brand strategy that changed everything for you and how you did business?
I searched and searched and searched for an answer that was right to me. And this is the really hard thing about strategy, in a sense that it should be very simple, but nobody can agree on what it is and what should it involve and what the output should be. And so this word strategy and becoming a brand strategist, and you can make 10K by just using your thinking, was very attractive to a very novice person entering the space. And I make no admission that I was thinking it as total bullshit, but it got to the point where I was like, logically thinking, this isn't it. This doesn't feel right. A tone of voice, your messaging, your purpose and your vision and your values, that's not a strategy, because inherently I have those things without being strategic as a person. And even my brand identity is more to me than just how I look. It's how I sound, the things I say, the purpose that is either realized or unrealized when I wake up and roll out of bed. And I have certain values and traits and morals and all the rest of it. So that to me became this identity. So it was like, well, what's the strategy then? If I think about it in war planning, strategy is not how we feel and how we communicate. It's how we plan to win. And it took until I reckon only 2 or 3 years ago, probably 3 years ago now, that I came across a marketing professor at the time. He's now not a professor, I don't think, but his name's Mackrill, and he put out a few articles that he does as a contributor to Marketing Week, outlining this is what strategy is. Whether or not you call it marketing strategy or brand strategy, this is it. This is how a brand can win. And you do it with these steps of market orientation, research, reviewing what data you have to work with, and then looking at segmentation, looking at your targeting, looking at positioning, and then your objectives. And that's strategy. Anything beyond that is tactic stuff. That is something that you can either have set and forget, like your branding, which probably shouldn't change for 10 years or more, if not longer, and your marketing, pricing, placement, product and promotion. And once I got that, I was like, this is what I've been missing. And that was the light bulb head smack moment, where it was like, dude, this is strategy. This is what I've been looking for. Fantastic. I'm fine now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so when you approach a client, or a client approaches you, and you need to help them with that strategy, what's the first thing that you try and they might have the right ideas, they might have the wrong ideas. when it comes to strategy, or they might have no idea. They're like,
Yeah.
I want a cool logo,
Yeah, that's it.
make it cool, make
Make
it
it
like my
really.
competitor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's some of the first things that you start talking to them about that just kind of gets them aligned in the right direction when it comes to a brand strategy?
At first is like what's working, what's not working really. What could be better? What do we want to be doing better here? And then kind of figuring out, is this something I can help you with? That's kind of the first port of call. The second is, who's your target? That's really where strategy comes from. Like, who are you trying to target and what with? What do you have to work with that is going to solve that person's problem? And that's market orientation. And then as a result, you say, okay, well, if you can fill this gap of helping somebody, be it a product, be it a service, who's going to need it? Who are all the different people that can need it, and what situations can they need it? Or what situations would they think of buying this and needing this? And that's segmentation and another thing called category entry points. And then that leads into, okay, well, who can we use our budget to target? Great, it's this particular person or this particular person, or maybe you want to mass market. It depends on where you are. If you're a startup or you're a bit further down the line. And then once we've got that down on paper, if it hasn't been on paper with them already, some clients are good. They have all this stuff. And it's like, fantastic. We don't really need to do anything different. We just need to do more of the same. That's fine. We just need to tick the box and say, good, we covered it. And then we can do the fun stuff. You can do the marketing, you can do the branding, you can do the repackaging of your stuff if it needs it. If you want to change your logo, do you really need to change the logo? Could we just change messaging maybe? But yeah, like you kind of alluded to, maybe 80% of people go into branding conversations saying, we don't like our branding. We don't like how we look. Or we don't like how we sound. And it's more the aesthetic kind of things rather than looking at the internal. And so the conversation is like, yes, we can do that. We can absolutely do it. Yes, your logo is probably a bit shit. But we want to make sure that if we're going to do this, it's going to be worth it to you. And we're going to make sure that it aligns with everything else you're doing and aligns with who you want to help. Because if it doesn't, then it's just making something look pretty and you're going to like it, but your customer is probably not going to pay attention to it, give two craps about it. And you've just, wasted 10, 20, 30, 40, however many $1,000 you've invested into this. So we want to try and get it as good as possible. And again, at the end of the day, a strategy isn't predicting the future. You'd like to think it is. You could blow smoke up your ass and say, yeah, we predict the future. But it's a hypothetical. It always has been a hypothetical. And it is hard to measure brand success compared to, marketing outcomes in terms of measuring an ad or anything. But, long term, this is what, if every business and brand that you buy into that has successfully made you buy them time and time again has done all this stuff, why are you any different? That is what I keep coming back to in terms of a point to say this stuff matters and you can't discount it as much as you want to. Yes, it's the first thing off the chopping block that you want to delete and take off your balance sheet, but this is, a customer's not going to know you exist unless you are there in front of them. So this stuff matters.
Yeah. And so with the strategy, you've taken them down that path. How does strategy inform visuals? Because we've seen a lot of businesses lately. It seems like everybody's rebranding, and we've seen some successful rebrands and we've seen some unsuccessful rebrands. So how does the relationship between the strategy work that you've talked about, how does that translate into visuals and in a good way? And how do you know when it's wrong?
The customer will tell you if it's wrong. Like, that's the straight up answer. Not just marketing people on LinkedIn, but the customer tell you it's wrong because they won't buy. They'll stop buying. Jaguar might be an example of that, depending on how things go in the next few years of rebranding and completely, about facing their current target market in search of a new one. But in terms of strategy, this is the kind of weird one in terms of, saying how does a strategy influence visuals if the visual could always be anything it wanted to be? Because it can. Because if you go to me or if someone goes to you, Paul, and someone goes to somebody else, they're going to get 3 different visual outputs based on what we bring to the table. And I guess that's a point to say that if you come to me, this is what you're probably going to get in terms of a style that either I have or and experience that I have that brings my kind of vision to it. And that's why you're hiring me specifically rather than somebody else. If you're working with a team, then it's a little bit of a different sort of situation again. But again, if you went to Landor and Pentagram, you're still going to get two probably different outcomes. If they were the same, might be coincidental, who knows? But in terms of that linear process from strategy to visual execution and even messaging and audio branding and the rest of it, if the strategy is a very simple idea and can be extrapolated into every other touch point possible, that's the kind of blueprint that you want, I think, at least. So if you put the strategy at the center, saying this is who we are, what we believe, this kind of core idea that sums up the whole brand very simply, that the receptionist can understand it all the way to the CEO, and everyone in between in terms of the marketing agency or the customer at least, sees it in some way, shape or form, depending on the situation. That's helpful. But if the brand is at the end of the day trying to fit other criteria, not just the strategy, say this is who we are, this is what we believe, this is how we want to position ourselves against the competition, based on that last point, visual might just be as simple as one competitor is using yellow, one competitor is using green, one competitor is using red, we're going to use blue. That is as strategic as you can get on a very simple level. Again, strategy doesn't need to be exceptionally complex. It needs to be exceptionally simple in that, we're just making decisions to make sure that a customer remembers us and thinks of us and then goes and buys us if we're available. That to me is the end all be all. And if you're making these strategic decisions along the way in visuals, in messaging, to make you stand out, to make you separate from the competition, to maybe position you against somebody else, like Avis, famously did, saying we try harder because we're number two. Things like that informs this idea of who we are in that external communication, be it visual, be it messaging, be it the vibe. I don't know. It really depends on what someone's experiencing.
Yeah. And so you had recently posted on, I think is it Poppy, the drink company?
Yes.
Is it Poppy?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Poppy.
So for somebody that comes and says, well, does design matter? Does visual strategy matter? Of course, that's a good example. And like you mentioned, Jaguar it'll be a good example in a couple of years. It's too soon to tell. So what do you tell somebody that says, well, how does visual brand strategy make a difference? What do you tell them?
How do you quantify it? Yeah. Again, without testing, you don't know. And again, it depends on the market of everything else around you. And I'd suggest that Poppy, the example here is Poppy is potentially being acquired by Pepsi for $1.5 billion. And that's like the headline story. Yes, packaging matters because this is what Poppy used to look like. It used to be called Mother, and it was in this very sort of inane brand that you could easily pass by on the shelf and think it was just rose water. And it turned into this very vibrant, engaging can that at the time when it was introduced on the shelf, there was nothing like it. And this category of I don't know what it's called, but it's like adding either prebiotics or probiotics or some other benefit to, it's like a functional soda. I think that's what they call it. It hadn't really exploded yet. I think Poppy was just at that forefront of being there at the right place at the right time.
Right.
And then having enough investment, because they had several stages of investment from different angel investors and things and VC firms that catapulted their ability to be available at tremendous scale in as many places as possible across the US, that allowed them to be this brand that is just everywhere and becomes ubiquitous in the market, to say that this is the leader because they are everywhere. They have the most shelf space. They have the most identifiable brand that you can see in this space compared to the less better options of Pepsi and Coca-Cola and everything, which is funny that Pepsi acquires them.
Right.
But yeah, in terms of like the visual thing, to say to somebody, okay, well, this is the hallmark example. It's like, yes, it's great, but there is a tremendous amount of other different factors that are going on including the visual, the packaging, that is a win, because it's silly to say, and I didn't include this in the original post until I edited it, because I know a lot of people were like, are you telling me it was just the packaging and the rebrand and the name itself? It's like, no, you can't be that silly to think that that's the only reason why this succeeded.
Right.
It's always got to be a collection of marketing, branding efforts, and some sort of strategy behind, but also sales, distribution, just getting into these big stores like a Walmart or whatever, it needs to be done. It's not just the packaging alone. It could help get you that next round of funding. It could help you get into that shelf because it stands out from all the other competitors. And supermarkets are looking for different things on the shelf. They don't want duplicates of the same stuff over and over because there's such a saturation. So yeah, there's by all means something that can be done there in terms of visual to stand out, in addition to product function or benefit or service benefit or function. So yeah, again, I'm not, again, silly to think that visual alone is going to do the job. But if you don't have it and it looks like crap, no one wants to pick that thing up off the shelf. It's not going to get your attention. So at the end of the day, it does take a leap of faith to go from awareness to consideration to then, actually buying the thing. And if awareness is predicated on the visual, predicated on the promotion and everything, and then consideration is based on the product benefit or feature or whatever, great. Or if it's just this one, I like the look of this one nicer, I want to be seen with this one. So instead of a Voss water, I want to be seen with a Liquid Death more at a concert. Which one is going to tickle my fancy? So, like, again, there's no hard and fast rule, I think, in saying that the visual is 100% foolproof in terms of its impact. You can go into it, make a nice visual. It looks appealing, but no one still buys it because the product sucks.
Absolutely.
And it can't polish a turd, kind of thing. It's one of those kind of things to not rely on. But the same with anything. Even if you're cheaper price, it doesn't mean that people will buy. So there's never just one hard and fast thing.
Yeah, I agree with that, because you can say, it's the design makes a difference, and it makes a difference, but you could also there's a term in Australia that I don't know whether they still use it, but when I was there, they used to call it up whoop whoop, where it's like you could be a great looking brand in the middle of nowhere and you're not going to be successful. You need to be positioned in the right places. You need to be visible in the right places. You need the right exposure. And then, like you said, you also need to deliver. I mean, if you look great and you're in every single store, and when people try your product, it stinks, or it's terrible, it tastes bad, it behaves bad, it breaks quickly, or whatever, you've got to have a lot of factors in it. But design certainly is one of those that helps you get attention once you're in the right place, and if you have the right product, right?
Exactly. It's kind of like table stakes. Like, you kind of got to be in it with all these different factors because everybody else is doing it. So you really got to find that thing that is going to give you that leg up if it isn't already. So if everyone looks pretty bland on the shelf, you come in with something that's just completely goddamn out there. Like, there's an olive oil brand. I can't remember the name of it, but every olive oil is in a dark green glass bottle. And then this company comes along with a label stuck onto a plastic bottle with a nice easy screw, nozzle to pour out your olive oil, and it disrupts. And I'm sure there'll be five other copycats from that. It's not it's distinctive, but it's not differentiated. It's differentiated for 2 seconds until somebody copies it. So, we still got to be distinct in some ways. And there's just too many factors to say one thing is the holy grail, put it that way.
Right. So talk a little bit about the single-minded brand. Talk a little bit about what that means and how you use that in your strategy and in the way you serve your clients.
Yeah, I think this is the pitfall that you end up falling into, is that there's so many different ideas that your brand or a client's brand could fall down, like in terms of rabbit holes, that it's like, yeah, we could be this, or we could be this, or we could be this. And then you kind of say, well, I don't want to lose part of that, and I don't want to lose part of that. I want to kind of be a few of these different things, and then we end up finding that we've got all these different messages, and where do we use which one where, or maybe could we have 3 different targets and have 3 different messages? And it's like, yeah, you probably could. Absolutely, you could. You could probably have 3 different brands as a result. But if we're coming to the table with one single-minded idea of this is what we want to do, this is who it's for, this is the reason why, this is what we want to say, this is how it's going to look, and everything in each of those kind of columns is the same kind of simple idea, isn't that going to make it easy for us to just keep putting it out there, so that at the end of the day, a customer isn't going to see us every day like we do. They might see it, once every year, but every year that they do see it, maybe at Christmas time, for instance, we show up and they remember it because they've remember seeing it before, and it's remained consistent. And it's this very simple idea that doesn't take a lot of my brain cells to remember and commit it to memory, and then again recognize it. So if we keep this simple-minded idea, it keeps everybody clear and confident in the idea. It's very applicable to apply it to new things that are made and new things that produce in terms of messages and advertising. So there's a lot of different things that can make a single-minded message or concept easier to work with, consistent.
For another type of business that whether it's a high proctor, a coach, an accountant, how would you share that idea with them about being a single-minded business?
Again, it comes into what they really are about and what kind of experience I think they deliver, and maybe if that's any different to somebody else. But there's some idea that is always something you can just sort of pull out, and it can be one word, it could be 5 words, whatever it is, that you can distill the essence of this brand into something that is just very simple and elegant to work with. To go back to that person, Mark Ritson, that encouraged this idea of what strategy can be in terms of the process. Saying if you can't get it down onto one page, like your strategy down onto one page, you're doing it wrong. Like, yes, it takes an ungodly amount of information sometimes, but it requires this distillation of information into something that is coherent and doable, which is another definition of strategy by another individual. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I've got his book behind me. Roger Martin. And strategy is a hypothetical guide to put you on a playing field to win. It's coherent and doable. And so, yeah, if it isn't coherent, if it's not simple enough to then be able to go out and do it, then it's not going to be easy to give to a client to then go out and succeed. Because at the end of the day, you can only handhold a client for so long. And my thing is, I don't want to give you something that is too complex, that if you don't have someone like me here to do it, then you're up the creek without a paddle. It's not going to work. There's a couple of examples in the product space that I could give. Kit Kat is always one that picks up a lot of traction in terms of very single-minded idea of positioning. And it's just like, we believe breaks are good. That's their single-minded proposition. And that is a hallmark into the product itself, breaking chocolate, that it's used at a time when you should be taking a break. It's the whole philosophy. And if that can be found in a brand, if you're a personal trainer, if you're a business coach, if you are a real estate agent, there is something in there that makes you guys you, and might be the reason that someone does pick you because of it, potentially. Again, someone might pick me because of my personality and because I'm just this Aussie pink branding guy that is frank by name, frank by nature in terms of the application of what it is I do, and just keep it short, sweet, and to the point. If it's not, then it just complicates it for people. People can't remember complex information, and people don't care about your brand as well enough to want to dig deeper into something that, yes, has more substance and a bit more nuance to it, but let them find that maybe out over time. as you introduce more things and a bit more of a dynamic brand over time. For a client of mine, and everyone hates this kind of example of saying, treat your business like their family, kind of your team like their family. But when you literally are a team of family, lean into it, kind of thing. Like if
Yeah,
you're a husband and wife team that run a business, that have your team that are cousin, like you have two people in your team that are cousins with each other, or another husband and wife that's part of your team. Like, and it's just a whole dynamic of family individuals that work with you. Say that we are the like this is the example I did for a real estate agency. We are the Foster family that you get to choose, and now we're based in a town called Foster.
yeah,
And it was just
yeah.
this like fun
Nice.
kind of thing that we are a family kind of business because we are run by family, and that's our team culture. So that's a single, very simple idea to get your head around and to make the experience what it is. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, and I think a lot of people fracture their brand because they are trying to be a lot of things to a lot of people, or they don't have the clarity to distill it down into one idea. There
Yeah.
was locally here. There was a location that had several Italian restaurants, and they closed down, and they didn't succeed for whatever reasons. And then the sign went up, or the announcement went up, that another Italian restaurant was going into the same location. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, so what's going to be different about this? And somebody shared it on social media, and I asked the question. So what's different about this one than the other two that failed? And somebody had posted and said, well, this one, they're going to have not only Italian food, but they're also going to have all these other types of food as well. And I'm like, that's not a good thing. That's actually a bad thing. It's I don't know what else is on the menu, but you don't go to an Italian restaurant and they expect sushi,
Yeah.
donuts, and pancakes. And you want to go to an Italian restaurant and have an authentic Italian experience. And
Exactly.
so to me, that's a good example of somebody that has kind of lost their way in they're trying to be all things to all people, and so they don't become known for one thing. And a lot of brands that are successful is when you think of their name, you think of a certain thing. Whether it's a feeling, whether it's a solution, whether it's a quality, whether it's whatever it might be, you think of a single thing. And that's what you're saying, right? Is to get that kind of clarity is what takes businesses to the next level.
Yeah. And look, given your example there, like if you were to say that being all things to everybody, like there is research to say that mass marketing to as many people as possible is how you do grow a brand in many spaces, especially the product space. You kind of need to appeal to as many people in the market as possible. Otherwise, you're probably not going to grow exponentially. You'll stay stagnant. You'll keep having the same kind of buyers. But if you want to get to the kind of the next echelon, you need to find more buyers. And you can offer different things. Apple isn't just known for the iPhone; they're known for a lot of different things. Or Amazon, same kind of deal. But yeah, it's depending on what you get people to remember you for. Like if it's not the product or the service, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's just a deliver on a certain promise of quality, or if it's Domino's, if we don't deliver your pizza within 10 minutes or whatever, it's free. Or I'll leave it at that. But things like that where
Right.
somebody is remembering and choosing you for a particular reason, lean into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for somebody that is struggling with that, what's one of the first tools that you pull out of your toolbox to help them get that clarity?
Get everything out of your mind. I mean, a lot of people, when you go into this, find it hard to do it themselves because they've got so many different ideas of what could be and an uncertainty of what should be and what can be and all the rest of it. You get it down on paper logically and go through the kind of steps of, why did we start this? Why do we want to keep doing this? What's our interest in it? And it might just be to make money. That's fine. But who is going to benefit from this? Who is it we really can help you? Is there anyone that we've got in our blind spot that we just haven't seen that is somebody that we could help more than whoever is buying us now, which seems to be in decline? We've got to find somebody else that might like this. If not, pivot our business like Jaguar. There's a declining market of aging men in their 60s to 90s. Younger people aren't buying Jaguars. They can't afford them. Maybe what do we do different? That kind of thing. And so, yeah, you just need to get everything down on paper, I think, and take away the subjectivity of what it is you do, because you're so attached to it, you're so close to it that you don't have this 100-foot view down of your business. And it can take somebody else coming in objectively that doesn't give a crap about your business. They want to see you succeed because it reflects good on you.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're also thinking about the end user, to make sure that what it is they do for you is going to work. And they come in objectively. I come into a project objectively. Half the time, I don't even understand what half of my clients really do, other than this is the experience that I want my client's customer to walk away with. I want them to have this amount of awareness of this brand to make it very easy so that they can understand. And they're probably in a space where, as a customer, they would understand it if it's a very specialized service. But I don't need to understand the full ins and outs of your business to be able to help you. It's not an expectation that I have to love your product either. Funnily enough, I do work with a couple of brands that I do love their products. I consume them every day, but others, not so much. And I don't have to be able to help you. But it's getting all those ideas down on paper and making it logical, making it very sequential in terms of this is what we do here, this is what we do here, this is what we're going to do here, this is what you can do next. I can't help you with all these things, but if that helps you in some way, I hope that is of value to you. And, from doing those kind of early conversations with clients, they say, well, damn, how do you take all of that and put that into something simple? I was like, well, I don't pay attention to everything. Like, you can't. You have to strip away the stuff that isn't really that meaningful. It might feel like it's meaningful to you, but really to the customer, it's probably not. Or to your team, it's probably not something everyone can get behind because it's too specific or too subjective. We've got to kind of strip the fat and make it as lean as possible with the most impactful bit of protein, let's say. Let's put it into some kind of context of analogy to really work with it and get out there and people can, dig in, kind of thing. So, having someone externally come in to just make sense of the mindgasm that you're having of everything you could do. This is why people do therapy. You go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. It's exactly the same kind of thing. You feel a bit like a psychologist trying to unpick somebody's brain here and put it down on paper so they can see it nice and neat. But I think that's what you kind of need to do. And creative agencies do this all the time. They get other creative agencies to do their branding. Or their team that isn't so attached to it compared to the owner and the founder. And I work with a lady that I subcontract out as the branding person for her marketing arm of her business, and she wanted to rebrand, and it got to the point where it was like, you need to pull back a bit. This isn't for you. This is for your customer here. We're trying to put your customer in mind to make sure that we position this business as the kind of client that we want to attract, not what you aesthetically like. And she's like, okay, yep, no, I get it. Yep, I need to just pull back again here. And it worked out. So we just get in front of it. We just get in our own way sometimes in terms of, that block.
Right. Yeah, I know for me, designing my own stuff is the toughest thing ever. Like, designing my own logo and all of that stuff. Like, I've had the same logo for like 20 years because once I finally settled on it, I'm like, I am not changing this.
Yeah, that's a good thing, though. That's a good thing.
But I think it happens for every kind of business. And I think you're absolutely right in, sometimes you do need the outside professional to come in and look at it objectively, because we do get too close to things. We do get sometimes forget that it's not about us. It's, we've got to keep the audience in mind, our customer in mind, and it's not our preferences and our likes and the stuff that gets us excited, but we've got to look at who are we trying to serve and reach, and how do we make ourselves attractive to them? Because not everybody has subjective superpowers that, not everybody's Steve Jobs. Like, if Steve Jobs said, I want to do stuff this way because I want to, he got to do that because he had a very good instinct about him. But not everybody gets that privilege. I don't think, I don't think everybody deserves it because they. just
Very true.
because. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. And personal branding, I feel exactly the same way about it. Like everyone says, personal branding, it's got to be kind of inherently about you. It's like, yes, absolutely. But at the end of the day, you kind of need to ham it up a bit, because otherwise you can just go about your life without having to publicize yourself. Like that, there's some kind of end goal there. If it's not to sell a product, there's some kind of reason why you want to show up publicly, have people remember you and listen to you. Give them a reason to make it as easy as possible to remember you by. That's why I use pink like it's going out of fashion.
Yeah.
It's just those simple things you can do to make it about them. Because if it's only just about you, then you may as well just start, instead of putting a phone in front of your face and recording that, just talk to a brick wall. Because there's why make a personal brand if it's only going to be about you? It's just so narcissistic.
Right.
So,
Right.
if you're going to do it for the right reasons, and it's, well, not right reasons, but for a reason, and there's always going to be some long tail down the road, if it's to help your business or to maybe be this influential person to help others, make it easy for other people to remember. So again, it's not just about you, it's about them.
Right, right. And so, when it comes to, creating the visual brand, one of the things, and we've talked about simplifying quite a bit.
Yep.
When you present a brand to somebody, you present only just one option, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Why is that?
Again, clarity. Like I don't want to give my clients so much to think about where they have to throw one child away. That's what it kind of ends up becoming, of preference of, do I pick this kid or this kid? Can we mush the two kids together? No, we don't want to Frankenstein children. That's kind of what it becomes in terms of a end visual product. So look, I try and make it a rule not to do more than one concept for that kind of reason, just clarity and aligning it with a single-minded idea. And I know you've had Jacob Cass on here talking about that for the exact same reasons he's said is why I do one concept. But that isn't to say that you can't have two concepts. If you want to pay for it, we'll do it. But I want to try and make them as polar opposite as possible, so there isn't that opportunity for clash of bringing them together and having to massage them together, because you don't want to lose this part and don't want to lose this part. You want to, somehow push them together. So can we use this color with this one, or can we use this font with this one? Sure, you kind of can in some instances, but it becomes just a bit of a mishmash, and it happens so often. And I kind of think that if that's the approach that is going to happen, you may as well go to two different agencies. You may as well go to two different providers to produce something. And I think at the end of the day, I want to come to the table with something that I wholeheartedly believe that I think will work based on all the other things that have come before it in terms of message and strategy and even your internal identity of what your culture is. Does all this align? And does this even position you against the competitors and, help you stand out, and all these different factors to keep in mind? I want to come to the table with one good idea and put all my eggs in that basket and believe it. And if they say, no, I don't like it, I am fully prepared to go back to the drawing board. That's fine. I go into that knowing that is a potential occurrence, but it has never happened, which is lucky for me. I'm going to keep touching wood here, that the process of not just doing visuals only, if there's other stuff at the beginning that acts as a bit of a brief, you would say, but also it's a tick box to say, yes, we've agreed on this, we've agreed on this, we've agreed on this. Okay, so if this aligns with this, why would we disagree with that? And again, it can come down to subjectivity and somebody just vehemently not liking it. They don't vibe with it. They don't feel it at all. And you got to take into account that someone is going to have to see this day in, day out, and they really don't hate it. They're not going to go into meetings and selling with confidence with something they just don't like. I don't want to do that to somebody. I don't want to give them something they just hate and they just have to use it. And they're like, oh God. But in that same breath, sometimes it grows on people. And I'm not expecting somebody to love a first concept on first sight. It might grow on them over time. But if they can put themselves in the customer's shoes and see that, look, it stands out from the competition, it helps get attention, it helps communicate this message and the vibe and the position that you want to communicate, why not? kind of thing. If
Right.
there's no good reason for why not, then they really kind of got to look at themselves and say, well, look, I can't really help you further if you don't want to see it this way.
Right.
It can be unfortunate, but yeah.
Right. And the reaction could be very subjective. And that's when you need to pull them back down into the strategy of what got us to this point, right?
Yeah.
Because you subjectively reacting to something, that's not a great gauge for if a solution is right or good or appropriate, because the strategy and as a creative, you've taken the time to take all of this strategy, all of this information, all of this inspiration, and funnel it down to a single solution. And if you've done the right things and kept it aligned to the strategy, then whether they like it or not, it's still a good strategy. Now they, like you said, they could still hate it, and they're the client, and ultimately they get what they want. But still, you've got to kind of bring them back into saying, I've served you to the best of my ability with this strategy. So give me some more information on what specifically you don't like about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if there's not enough information to suggest why it's not liked, then maybe it is doing things like a focus group to really test it on actual customers. And if that shows people don't like it on first value, then yeah, sure, let's go change it, because there's some proper objective data there from an external source that is saying this is why it doesn't work.
Right.
And that I am fully for. But yeah, to say I just don't like it and I don't know why is a bit of a kick in the teeth.
Yeah. So what do you tell them when they say, "Well, I'll know it when I see it"?
Sometimes it just gets to the point of saying, "Look, I think we need to part ways." Unfortunately, like it doesn't seem like I can help you here if there's no clear direction of what I can do better for you. If this isn't solving it for you, then look, I wish you all the best, kind of thing, and everything that comes with that kind of sign off. That hasn't happened for my clients, which is good. If they've wanted to take it in house, that's happened before once. They decided, we're not too sure about this. It might not be even anything we need right now, and that particular client hasn't changed anything since. So again, they probably didn't need it. So yeah, it's just one of those things that it crops up sometimes, and some people can be difficult, and some people, don't know what they want. They have this kind of niggling feeling, and that's fine. But sometimes you just can't help everybody.
Right. Man, this has been an amazing conversation. I've really enjoyed this. We've had some technical issues. I've had my AirPods fall out of my ears in the middle of a
You did well.
conversation. Did well. The video will get to enjoy that. The audio won't get to see the AirPod slowly oozing out of my ear
never
and falling
happened.
to
It
the
never
ground.
happened, Paul. It never happened.
But this has been amazing. So if people want to get a hold of you, if they want to follow your journey, you post some amazing content. Definitely encourage you to check out G'day Frank on the socials. So how do they get a hold of you, man?
Instagram and Threads at G'day Frank, so GDAYFRANK, and then website is the same, so g'dayfrank.com. On LinkedIn, you can find me Frank Mackrill, which is a bit of a harder one. So Frank and then MACKRILL.
Awesome. And what kind of people do you help, and what kind of people do you not help?
Not help. People that aren't interested in branding, I guess. People that I do help. Look, a lot of the people that do follow, I guess, on social are others like me. I'm not trying to help everybody, but a lot of through osmosis, I guess, people are seeing my stuff and engaging with it, which is great. But in terms of clients, yeah, anyone that's in the FMCG space, so products on shelf, especially in supermarkets, some tech businesses, especially a lot of AI businesses seem to be now popping up. Working with a few of them, and then some other kind of related industries, especially real estate specifically is another one that I'm working with. So if you're within those kind of spaces, reach out. If not, if you're in any other space, I'd be happy to work with you.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. This has been great.
Thanks, Paul.